So as Frank said, I'm Harper, and I think that I was at the first Tech Cocktail event, and then we also spoke at the first Tech Cocktail conference. And hilariously, well, not so hilariously, but my co-presenter on his way to the event was hit by a car while riding his bike. He's in the hospital and he's fine, but I just wanted to say he's not dead. So anyone who was following the Twitter stream earlier today, everything is okay. So anyway, I'm Harper, and we're actually talking about I am actually talking about fertilizing the problem-solving garden, and my subtitle here, I think, is amazing. How to problem-solve a problem-solving team of problem-solvers to solve your problems. This is something that we did a lot at Threadless because we really had no idea what we were doing, and we spent a lot of time jumping right into a problem, and so we had to learn how to just handle every possibility there. So I'm going to run through some of the steps that we did to facilitate a good problem-solving environment, and how to build that team, and some of the things we did to make sure that team was very cohesive. So that is Scott Vandenplas, and that's Scott VDP. You can probably follow his updates and his morphine dosages. So the first one is pruning. I run a couple communities on the internet, and hiring and interacting with engineers and people in your community. One of the things that's very important is knowing when to remove someone from that community. So a couple examples I'll give you. I run this community, and there was someone on the community that was being very aggressive and abrasive, and I just kicked them off. And then they were like, "Hey dude, like, why did you kick me off your community?" And I was like, I didn't know what to say because I didn't expect them to be a real person and talk to me back. And so I kind of just like balked. Come to find out, that person would have been a very good member of this community, and I regret every time something comes up with this particular genre, I'm like, man, I should not have kicked that person out. And then another example, in the same community, another person came up, they're very aggressive, very abrasive, and so I said to them, hey, like, you're being very aggressive and very abrasive. What do you think we should do here? And they were like, well, maybe I just don't fit. And the takeaway here, it's a little crass, is just don't be a pussy. Like, really, talk to the people, get in there and say, look, this is something that we need to figure out. And it's very important to cut those people early, or just to, it's kind of like a bonsai tree, right? You're growing something that has this shape that fits this mold, and sometimes this branch is not going to cut it. Well, you do cut it, or whatever. So the other one is this is one that Scott and I talk about a lot, which is that we butt heads constantly. And so I hired Scott. He was a CIO of a bank, and I pulled him away actually from the Field Museum of all places. And I hired him into Threadless. And then I think from that day until the day I left Threadless, we argued. I don't think a moment stopped where we weren't constantly just being like, you're wrong. No, you're wrong, or whatever. It was very fun, but the thing was, it was all towards this truth. And we had a common goal, and we were together in this truth. And so I call this the truthquisition, because it really is, everyone is together trying to find this truth, and sometimes you get to butt heads. And it's very important to butt heads. In fact, I think sometimes the butting of the heads leads to like clarity. So don't be afraid to get heated, especially if you're like, something like Threadless is a cultural experience. The thing that's exciting about that is everyone loves it. We all loved t-shirts. We all loved making these t-shirts. We all loved selling the t-shirts. And so when someone believed or felt strongly about something, they had this emotion to argue about it. And so that's okay. It was good. We had a lot of hugs. There was a lot of hugs. But it worked out. So this is Scott's story, which I'm going to do a terrible job of telling, but how many people have seen this movie? Does anyone know what this movie is? Boiler Room. Okay, so what happens in the end of Boiler Room? I mean, this is kind of rude, I guess, if you haven't seen the movie, but let's just act like it's cool anyway. So, which version? I don't know. So anyway, the story goes is Scott was a CIO of a bank, and he gets in this bank, and he's in this bank, and all these guys are like, man, this is awesome. It's just like Boiler Room. Look at this. We're going to make money. It's going to be just like Boiler Room. And he's just like, have you seen the end of the movie? Because apparently everyone gets arrested. Like, it's a terrible end. But the thing was, is these people were in this, and they had this idea of what this was going to be, and the idea was they were going to be ballers. They were going to be rich. They didn't care about the work. They didn't love the work. They loved this idea of the Boiler Room. And when you step back and you look at that, you're like, that doesn't look fun. Like, that dude looks like stressed out, like maybe some duress. And so I feel like the point is that you have to love to work. Everyone on your team has to love the work. And it's not just loving. It's like I use computers every day, whether I want to or not. They use me most of the time, but I sit down and I use the computers. And everyone on the team at Threadless and every team I work on, everyone that's excited about it has that same affliction. And I feel like what Scott's experience here was he was in this bank and he was there because he liked the technology. Everyone else was there because they had this goal way down the line, which was to make a lot of money. And none of them liked the work. None of them liked solving the problem. They just wanted this goal way down the line, and they wanted it so bad they were willing to change the reality of this movie to a reality that fit their minds. And so when they looked at the movie, all of a sudden, you know, when Scott's like, "Hey guys, we should probably sit down and watch this movie," you know, and then they're just like, "Wait a minute, that's not what I signed up for." Yeah, so don't get arrested. So this is another one of Scott's stories. So I'm a terrible video game player. And I mean, I'm really terrible. So this is Call of Duty. I think this is killing Nazi zombies. How many people have played Call of Duty? How many people have killed the Nazi zombies? So one of the things that the first day I started at Skinny Corp, which was Threadless, Jake Nickel was like, "Okay, we got to get you a computer." And so we went out and we bought a game computer. And I'm not a gamer. And I was just like, "Why are we buying a game computer? I'm not a gamer." And I was like, "I don't care about graphics cards. As long as I can have a shell, I'm great." And so he's like, "Well, no, we play games together." And I was just like, "Okay, well, what does that mean? Like, I don't know. I don't really play games together." So we get this gaming computer, and we all get in, you know, and then we start killing each other, and we start just really, brutally murdering one another every time. Like, it would be, and it's a startup, right? So like at 9:30 at night when you're done with work, or when you're taking a break, or when the pizza arrives, you kill each other for an hour and a half, and then you start back onto work or whatever. And it was great fun. So then, as I started hiring these engineers, we started noticing that time was very important. Because what it was is you got all these people together, and you got them, they work really hard, they're stressed out, they're very frustrated, they're very excited, and then you stick them in a room and they get to shoot each other in the face. And it was really fun, and it really was a good way to relieve stress. And also, I think the best part was it was so funny. There were so many times when just stupid stuff happened. And these people weren't game players. And like one of the engineers we always accidentally left behind. We never meant to. He just was slow. It was terrible. That may have been foreshadowing. Maybe. So another one, this is something that actually Dylan, one of my former coworkers, really enjoyed as well. And I'm not a big morning person, but what we do is we'd organize these things called the Tech Fest. And you might notice a trend. I really like taking words and breaking them apart and putting them together where they don't make sense. But the Tech Fest was getting everyone together to talk about things outside of work before work, which is basically outside of work. So something where it's kind of like a equal playing field. And I think it's very important for the people who are the leadership to also participate in this stuff. You go there, you hang out before work. This is something where someone's like, "Yeah, you know, this weekend I did something that wasn't work related." And everyone's like, "Awesome, me too." You know, and it's like you have to, because at work, sometimes those conversations they're contrived or they're weird or they're awkward. But here, everyone is outside of work. So you can say, "Yeah, you know, I'd like these biscuits and gravy, and this weekend I laid around." And no one's going to be like, "Oh, awesome." You know, that's really, everyone's interested because it's an outside of work activity. And so we did that quite a bit, and that was really awesome. We went to a place in Roscoe Village. That was good. So this is Hobby Lobby. This is 37 Signals talks about this a little bit, about how they help facilitate their employees to engage in their hobbies. And that was something that was really important for the tech team at Threadless as well, where if someone had a hobby, they were almost expected to participate with the Threadless tech team with that. So if it was flying rockets, we all were talking about rockets. If it was flying model airplanes, we all were talking about model airplanes. And there was one engineer in particular, Ivan Androtama, that had a really funny story. He was super into flight simulators. But he's an Indonesian dude in around 2001. You can't be into flight simulators. So he had to completely abandon his hobby But he was building a giant flight simulator setup, like all the monitors, like the rig and all that stuff. So, so we're all, that was a good joke for us. We were like, man, that sucks. Well, so we got him he got really into like model airplanes. And so he has this whole model airplane thing. But the thing was, it was this thing that we could all bond together with. And then how this comes together, sorry for the slide with words. I know it's real passe. But anyway, the idea was, I just want to summarize the things here. So hire problem solvers, fire the non-problem solvers. And you don't have to necessarily be as drastic as that, but you can guide the non-problem solvers to do things that they're better at. But it's very important if you want a team of people that are going to be just producing problem-solving activities that you don't have the slack there. Don't be afraid to butt heads while solving problems. Find problem solvers who love solving problems. That seems like a pretty obvious one, but you'd be surprised. Facilitate cooperative problem solving. Sometimes problem solvers like to solve problems by shooting Nazis in the face. This is very important. I can't explain how awesome it was to hang out with a bunch of guys that you just got done really hacking away at something or and the best was you'd have this situation where you, like for Threadless, where we almost lost all of the money. Right, you're just like, oh my God, we just blew up all the shirts. We have to re-sew all of these shirts or whatever. And after that was done, you solve the problem, you high five, and then you're like, now we're going to go take out all this frustration on one another. It was amazing. And then the one about the hobbies I think is important. Interesting problem solvers like to solve interesting problems outside of work problem solving. That's very important, and that's pretty much it. I try to say problem solving as much as possible. I hope I did good. I'd love to answer some questions that you guys have. Anything about team building or problem solving? It's an interesting question. I'm probably going to have to fire myself. I'm not really sure. No, I have some stuff, but we should talk after. Anyone else? Come on. At least one. Oh, there.
Do you ever throw out problems to the online crowd and then bring them back in?
Actually, Threadless did a lot of that. I think the reason that it was easy for Threadless is because we had such a big community that would tell us our problems anyway. So they would give us stuff back before we even threw it out there. But then sometimes we'd say, hey, what do you think of this? And then often they would say, oh, that sounds good, or that's a terrible idea. If you do that, and I suggest everyone do reach out to their communities, especially when building or testing or prototyping, whether through beta programs or alpha programs or whatever, be willing and ready to have negative feedback. Because they're going to tell you that you're an idiot, and you're going to say, but I'm the smartest man alive, which is what I say all the time. And you're going to find that you're not, which is a bummer. But, it works out. Yeah?
Eric touched on solving problems and finding a cool problem-solving technical co-founder.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting is I'm just going to go out and say that I'm probably a cool, interesting technical co-founder. And I sometimes have the same problem of finding the cool, interesting business co-founder. So I think the problem is mirrored on either side. And I think that the difficulty is also mirrored on either side. So what is attractive to someone like myself or like Eric, I think is very different from what is attractive. Like, for me, stability is not attractive. What is attractive is a hard problem, or a problem that I love. And I think the trickiest part is and I think this goes back to finding the problem solvers that love to solve the problem. And sometimes it just means you're saying, hey, here's a very interesting problem. And oftentimes when I talk to the founders who are like, hey, I'm really interested in you working with me in this startup, my response is, this is awesome, but that's not my problem. Like, not in a negative way, but it's like, this is a great problem. This is someone's problem to solve. Sadly, it's not my problem to solve. And it's kind of a bummer because some of these problems are really awesome. And you're just like, this is a great problem. Good luck. And at the same time, I then sleep and I go to bed and I'm like, and I start thinking about it. And then if you can get them to think about it at night, then they're in for the most part, And so I think the trick is just make a compelling problem. Find the person that is as similar to yourself as possible, that has obviously tech skills or business skills. Yeah. Me particularly, I really like big data, communities, and identity. So the problem is that there's apparently no money in all of that stuff. But as long as I abandon revenue plans, and the trick is that every single thing I've done in my life, I can ship in a box. Like, not that it's small, but that it's like e-commerce, or it's like encyclopedias, or all this weird stuff that I've done. Eventually, you ship it in a box. And so I'm like, man, identity. This is awesome. Then I'm like, I can't ship it in a box. My mom will never know what I'm doing. Yeah?
Do you have any, when you're with the team, do you have any particular exercises that you like to go through yourself?
I think it's very important to, as a leader of a group of engineers, to constantly be involved and to never abandon ship. So you should be the captain, and you should think of it as a ship. And it's a really like ridiculous analogy, but they should look to you as a peer. And sometimes it's very hard. Sometimes you walk into these companies and you see the CTO and the CEO and the COO and the C whatever and all these Cs, and then over here you see all these workers. And I think it's very important especially because so often in a startup, everyone is the same person. There's no one person who is above or different. Everyone's doing the same work. So it's very important to be knee-deep in the trenches with your engineers. And I think it's more of just a way of living than it is an exercise. But then at the same time, engage in the hard stuff too. Like at Threadless, I ended up hiring people that were much better at me or much better than I was at all the stuff that we were doing. And so it was a good opportunity for me to learn, but also I really needed to be in there fighting for them. What can I do to help you? And really engaging and facilitating that. Other than that, just like, we bought Steam and all these games for them, for all the engineers, helping facilitate hobbies, being an advocate, fighting for them oftentimes. Dylan, one of our engineers, was the first engineer to have a kid, so fighting for paternity for that person, and it wasn't a very hard fight, but it was just being an advocate, not just for problem solving, but generally, so that you're more of an equal. I think that's very important. That didn't answer your question at all, but it gave you some information. Yeah. I don't think I can actually answer direct questions, so if you can speak in platitudes. I think that's about, there's one in the back. We advertised on 37 Signals job board and Joel on Software and all the usual ones. We found we had terrible luck with Craigslist, and then we did a lot of word of mouth. And one of the slides that didn't make it was always hire your friends until it's a bad idea. Because it's always a terrible idea. But until it's a terrible idea, it's the best idea. And so Threadless was 100% built on friends until it went wrong. And then it wasn't built on friends as much. But the thing is you know how to work with those people, your friends, or your people you've previously worked with. So you understand the parameters of working with them. I don't think that there were very many engineers hired that were not direct contacts of someone within the team. I mean, every single person was either a recommendation from someone on the team or someone very close to that person was like, hey, like we hired a couple people off of DoubleClick. And one of the best front-end engineers at Threadless when I was there was from DoubleClick. And someone was like, Harper, this person just left DoubleClick. They're great. Grab them. So we grabbed them. And I have 100 million stories about that dude. So find me afterwards and I can fill your ears with noise. Yeah, I'll be around. Definitely let me know, and I'd love to hear about your startup if you have something going on, and I'm sure a lot of other people would too, so tell a lot of people. Awesome, guys. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Thank you, Harper. That was awesome.